American Imam teaches anti-Semitism to children. In a contentious lesson streamed from the Colorado Muslim Community Center, Imam Umar Mitchell delivered a sermon to children laden with heavy critiques of Jewish history and actions, attributing them to a pattern of deceit and betrayal. He charged the Jewish people with breaking covenants with Allah, killing prophets, and attempting to assassinate Jesus, also evoking a Quranic story where Jewish fishermen were turned into monkeys by Allah for violating the Sabbath. Mitchell insisted, quote, "It's not hate speech for you to be aware of these things," while asserting the necessity of recognizing the quote unquote characteristics of Jews to avoid being deceived, especially in the context of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. His direct address to the children is, quote, if this is the group of the people who broke their rules with Allah, should you trust these people today? Um, Resonating with the underlying theme of his sermon, focusing on historical grievances and promoting wariness of Jewish people, albeit acknowledging that a couple of them might not conform to this portrayal. So,
Tokens.
this is one of those situations where I was like, okay, this is really bad. This sounds really, really bad. Let's watch it and get more context and see if it's as bad as it sounds. And in fact, it's actually worse. So,
Oh my god. This
luckily,
one, right?
this is pretty much all in English. He uses some like Arabic terminology for some Islamic things, but I don't think we need to pause this constantly because it should be pretty obvious what he means.
And from Beni Israel.
Oh, so we don't need to pause because he's speaking English, right?
Yeah, I mean, if there's some
And
terminology
from
that you
Beni
might want to
Israel is
explain,
what group
but
that we know today.
Okay, let me go back. Hold on. Don't say anything.
And from Beni Israel is what group that we know today.
So Bani Israel means the children of Israel, which means Jews.
Israel. Who do you call today? The Yehud.
Yehud means Jews.
Who are the Yehud in English terms?
Oh,
Jews. They were given covenants and promises and agreements that they're supposed to what? Follow. And what do they do every single time? They don't obey. They break their covenant. They lie and they break their contract. So I'm going to ask you, if this is the group of people who broke their rules with Allah, should you trust these people today? Beni Israel was sent many, many messengers and prophets. They killed some of them. They even tried to kill Isa alayhi salam.
Isa alayhi salam is Arabic for Jesus.
If that wasn't all bad enough, Allah Azza wa Jal given them one day that they don't do no business. What day was that? For the Yehud, what day is their day? They don't do nothing. They just devote it for ibadah. What day is it?
Ibadah means worship.
Saturday. So the people, they were prevented from doing what? Business. So there's a group of fishermen. Who knows the story? You guys don't know the story about the fishermen who are not supposed to fish on Saturday? In Surah Al-Baqarah, they're told not to fish. So they say, you know what?
Surah Al-Baqarah is the second chapter of the Quran. It's saying the story of the Jews not following the rules given to them by Allah is basically saying it's in the Quran.
Cast our nets on Friday. We'll leave the nets out there all Saturday. We'll do our ibadah. Everything's good. Then come Sunday, we're going to eat. Does this sound like good worshipers? So what did they?
So you're saying, like, as a way for the Jew, Allah, God told the Jews to not work on Saturday, and but so these Jews, they try to find a loophole. They basically the fishermen, they set the net on Friday so that on Saturday it will do it things, and they will go worship on Saturday, so they didn't have to work, and then on Sunday they have all the fish that they could eat. By the way, so based on the actions of this fisherman, he's trying to say, like, look, you can't trust all the Jews. I mean, even if any of this made sense, these are just like a couple of fishermen. I don't know why you're just like generalizing all Jews as not trustworthy because of the actions of these.
What did they do? They went fishing, they cast their nets, and they said, we're not fishing. Our nets are fishing, but we're not fishing.
I mean, technically that's true. They're not fishing. The nets are fishing. Like, they're not doing any work. They just left.
What did Allah Azza wa Jal do to them as a punishment? Yes. Yes. He made them into monkeys. Literal, physical monkeys. Monkeys.
I mean, that's so, I mean, they were right. I mean, Allah is like, don't work on Saturday. They weren't working on Saturday. They said they just left the nets there. They weren't working. By the way, this is so anti-Semitic to talking about turning Jewish people into animals. This is very, very anti-Semitic.
Does this sound like a people who you want to do business
Once
with?
again,
What?
YouTube, we are discussing this for the purposes of educating people about beliefs that exist like this and to unequivocally condemn it and reject it. This is for educational purposes only. Okay, continue.
Yes.
Monkeys. Monkeys.
Like how the kids are, you know, if you tell people, this is so good for brainwashing children, because talking about people turning into monkeys is going to, for kids, this is going to be appealing. It's kind of funny. Like when he says monkeys, you know, the kids are laughing.
To monkeys. Literal, physical monkeys. Monkeys. Does this sound like a people who you want to do business with?
I mean, yeah, actually. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty smart. That's pretty smart. Like look how business oriented they are. Like, you cannot work on Saturday. Like, okay, how can I still make money without working on Saturday? Right? That sounds pretty, you know, entrepreneurial. I don't know, business savvy. Right.
You're like, actually, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah. I mean, it seems like, it's based on this story, it seems like the one you can't trust is Allah, because technically they were abiding by the rules. They're like, you cannot work on Saturday, and they were like, okay, how could I follow this rule while I still catch fish? And the person who didn't abide by the rules was Allah, because technically by the book they were following it.
What is one of the most major reasons why we keep losing in Philistine? And why?
Philistine means Palestine.
Does this sound like a people who you want to do business with? What is one of the most major reasons why we keep losing in Philistine? And why do they keep destroying them? No, because they keep tricking us to trust them. Allah Azza wa Jal, He reminds you about nations that came before, and He reminds you about some nations that still are. And He tells you about their characteristics for two things. One, so that you don't be like them, and for two, that you be aware of them. And it's important for you guys to know this.
Look at this kid. He's like right at the very front, like on the table. He's like very eager. Look at this one. This kid, like in the very, very front. He's like, like on the table. Look at
It's
this.
just little
You don't be
boys.
like them,
Look
and
at
for
this.
two, that you be aware of them. And it's important for you guys to know this. Who's been watching the news? Me. Who's been watching what Israelis are saying about you? Where they're calling anybody who disagrees with Israel as a what? A terrorist. Where they're calling what's happened to them the Holocaust. They're comparing our brothers and sisters being murdered to Nazis, to Adolf Hitler. We have to know, we have to understand who are these people so that we stop falling victim to them time and time again.
I mean, not all Palestinians and not all Arabs and not all Muslims are like Hitler. Of course not. But you are. I mean, that would that would be a fair description of you, right? Like, yeah, it's not a fair description of all Arabs and all Muslims and all Palestinians, but wouldn't that be a fair description of this guy?
To Adolf Hitler,
Yeah, I mean, he does. You're literally saying things that makes you comparable to him.
we have to know, we have to understand who are these people so that we stop falling victim to them time and time again.
This is exactly the speeches that Adolf was having, in the bars when he was becoming more and more popular. Exactly, like, we cannot trust these people. We cannot. These people destroyed Germany. Everything that is happening bad with Germany is because we trust these people. Like, this is a disease. That's exactly. You sound exactly like him. These are exactly the speeches that he was giving that made him popular.
Yeah,
It's not
interesting
hate
how
speech for you
Hitler also referred to the Jews basically as infiltrators and colonizers.
to be aware of these things. Allah says, "Illa qalilan minhum." Are we saying every single one of them is like this? No. Illa.
This is the house N-word kind of mentality that people have, the token ones that they keep. The Nazis were doing this as well. Like, they selected among the Jews certain ones that were different. They were like, okay, some of them are really good musicians or scientists or whatever. They were like, we will keep these ones as token. You're different from the other ones.
Allah says, "Illa qalilan minhum." Are we saying every single one of them is like this?
Oh, see, Allah, look at this. Allah, he says, Allah says, Allah.
It's not hate speech for you to be aware of these things. Allah says, "Illa,"
except from a small group among them. So he's saying most Jews are basically bad, but there's a few of them, according to Allah, just a few of them who are not like that.
qalilan minhum. Are we saying every single one of them is like this? No. Illa, except for qalilan, a little bit, minhum, from them, except a couple of them.
Wow. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Zaid is saying this brings back flashbacks from my childhood, makes me so uncomfortable and furious. There was a time when I was in these children's place. I'm sure a lot of people in our audience can relate to that. And
I can relate to that. It's cool.
Exactly. Diana is saying this is disgusting. I can't believe this is happening in the US and in the West at large right now. Yet this is happening in the middle of Colorado. And that was the main reason why I wanted to show this, because I want people to be aware that this isn't as far away as many people want to believe.
And they record it themselves and publish it. They feel so safe.
Oh, and he went on, he defended himself on Twitter. He like doubled down.
Yeah, and nothing. Okay, here's the thing. Right now, it's very scary, not just to be a Jew in the United States, okay, or Europe, but even if you're not a Jew, just holding an Israeli flag right now is. People don't feel safe going out and say, I stand with. You know how many people are out there now saying, I stand with Palestine? People don't feel as safe going out there with flags of Israel saying, I stand with Israel.
Because you're very likely to get assaulted.
Yeah. So if you imagine how scary it is just to go out there and say, I stand with Israel in many progressive cities right now in United States and many cities in Europe. Imagine what it's like to just be a Jew. If people know you're Israeli, it's pretty scary to be a Jew right now all around the world. But compare that to this guy, how safe they feel, how easy it is for them to come out and say this about, like, asking for basically having advocating genocidal thoughts to children, recording it themselves and putting it on the internet themselves.
Facebook,
and
YouTube.
And then
this was streamed to Facebook.
And people calling it out, and you're like, come at me. they know how widespread this ideology is. They feel safe. Yeah. Can you think that was in Colorado? Yes. This was not in an Islamic country. This is
in the middle
US.
of Colorado. Yeah, Unicorn is
Yeah.
saying, I don't practice, but I wear my Star of David Star of David necklace everywhere these days, tucked into my shirt so it can't be seen. I want so a lot of people will remember our old co-host of the show, Rivka. Rivka's Jewish, not practicing, but ethnically Jewish. And she went to I won't say where, but she went to an event in a major city. This was right after the attacks. This was before Israel responded to the attacks, and it was in support of Israel. And she was talking about how she was very basically fearful of going to this event, but she still wanted to go. And she sent me a message talking about the police presence there. She's like, Susanna, there's helicopters everywhere. And then maybe 20 minutes later, she sent me another message, and she said, Susanna, there are snipers on the roofs here.
Wow.
So what that means, for those who are not putting two and two together, what that means is that the local police presence thought that it was necessary to make sure that the local police or armed authorities were armed with snipers surrounding this event, standing with Israel, again, immediately after the attacks, before Israel even responded. The police felt it necessary to make sure that they were prepared with armed snipers to protect the people there. And what I said to her was, I am very grateful to see that the police is taking Jewish security so seriously. But it's terrifying and heartbreaking that that level is necessary in the middle of the United States. I went to a memorial service at a local synagogue the Tuesday after the attack, and there was a very heavy police presence at the synagogue. Very heavy police presence. You couldn't even drive within basically a block of that synagogue. And to get inside the synagogue, I had to go through like pat down, checking everything, blah blah blah, just for Jewish people to go inside their own house of worship. Yeah. And it was I don't know, going to that memorial at the synagogue was so heartbreaking, and you could just see the fear that people were experiencing, and it was very solemn. And what I wanted to do was to try to find equally a memorial for the people losing their lives in Gaza. And the unfortunate reality is that I could not find a memorial in my city that was not actually a celebration. Celebration of the largest attack on Jews since the Holocaust.
Unbelievable.
Because that was not the spirit. That was not the spirit of the memorial I went to at that synagogue.
Do you know who makes the most amazing, gorgeous, and other adjectives that I can't use here on YouTube, blasphemous art ever? We do! And for some reason, we are giving it away for free. Download them now using the link in the description before we change our mind.